Right, chapter 50 of North and South. Here we return to Milton and we leave Margaret in London, and the third person narrator goes to Milton and looks at Mr. Thornton, what's happening with Mr. Thornton meanwhile. And of course, what is happening with Mr. Thornton is that business is going very, very badly, and he's going to have to close his business, uh, close his factory. He does have a chance to get his money back, but it's through a very risky speculation, and he does not want to risk leaving people in debt. Okay. Meanwhile, at Milton, the chimneys smoked. The ceaseless roar and mighty beat and dizzying whirl of machinery struggled and strove perpetually. So here we have this contrast with the London setting, um, where everything is leisurely and wealthy and so forth. Here we've got the chimneys smoked, so the pollution, the ceaseless roar and mighty beat and dizzying whirl, so this sense of progress and action and vigour and purpose, struggled and strove perpetually. Lovely little sentence there. And there does seem to be much more of, I don't know, it just seems much more dynamic, much more purposeful than London, which just seems very leisurely and pointless. And of course, this seems to be Gaskell's attitude that the North is the future of England, that this is where the really great achievements are occurring. Okay, over here, what we have here, we see Mr. Thornton's attitude towards commerce, the power which he believed that commerce gave to every brave, honest, and persevering man to raise himself to a level from which he might see and read the great game of worldly success. So he sees commerce as a means of social mobility, and honestly, by such far-sightedness, command more power and influence than in any other mode of life. So it's a great mechanism for social mobility. Far away in the east and in the west, where his person would never be known, so he wouldn't personally go, his name was to be regarded and his wishes to be fulfilled, and his word pass like gold. His word pass like gold, simile there. And we see the glamour again of this imagery that is associated with the North and with this new industrial society. That was the idea of merchant life. I mean, even that is very elevated word choice with which Mr. Thornton had started. Her merchants be like princes, said his mother, reading the text aloud as if it were a trumpet call to invite her boy to the struggle. So that's from the Bible. Her merchants be like princes. So again, we see the ennobling kind of imagery of industry and trade, and this simile, her merchants be like princes. And I think this kind of emphasises the change in the social hierarchy as well, that merchants are becoming highly respected in the social hierarchy, at least of the North. And it had taken him long silent years to come even to a glimmering of what he might be now today, here in his own town, his own factory, among his own people. Note that repetition, his own, his own, his own. He feels like he strongly belongs in this place and with these people. He and they had led parallel lives, very close but never touching, till the accident, or so it seemed, of his acquaintance with Higgins. Once brought face to face, man to man, with an individual of the masses around him, and take notice, out of the character of master and workman, In the first instance, they had each begun to recognize that we have all of us one human heart. It was the fine point of the wedge. So here again, we see that attitude from Gaskell that in order to bring these warring sides together, in order to end this conflict, you need to have a sort of personal relationship of some sort. Each needs to have a personal relationship with one of the other to get that sort of personal kind of perspective on each other's viewpoints and struggles and difficulties and aims. Until now, he had never recognised how much and how deep was the interest he had grown of late to feel in his position of manufacturer, simply because it led him into such close contact and gave him the opportunity of so much power among a race of people, strange, shrewd, ignorant, but above all full of character and strong human feeling. So here, lately, he's begun to value his position of manufacturer, not just because of all of this sort of, high status, his word passing like gold and so forth, but because he can make a real difference, so much power. He can make a real difference to the lives of the people who work for him. And I think what we see here is Margaret's influence in this time of upheaval, this industrial revolution. People need to come to a new way of interacting with other people. And Mr. Thornton has learnt a new way to interact with his employees, not just through money and employment, but also through taking an interest in their particular situations and trying to work together as opposed to in conflict. Okay, and thence arose that intercourse which, though it might not have the effect of preventing all future clash of opinion and action, so talking about his relationship with Higgins, when the occasion arose, would at any rate enable both master and man to look upon each other with far more charity and sympathy, and bear with each other more patiently and kindly. So having that relationship with each other leads them to cut each other a bit of slack, enables them to see the other's perspective and not automatically jump to the worst possible conclusion about each other. And this is illustrated down here when Mr. Thornton's under a bit of stress and is answering a bit shortly to things, curt, decided answers. And instead of thinking, oh, Mr. Thornton's such a terrible person, his workmen regard him with sympathy because they see the care pressing on him. And Higgins and another man stay after work to finish a piece of work that someone else had left undone that Mr. Thornton was unhappy about. So we see that sympathy coming out, that they think, oh, poor bloke, let's help him out. So that empathy between master and man is forging because of that relationship initially just with the one man, just with Higgins. And yep, that's it for that chapter.